Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today is two things. One, it's August 31st. It's almost the end of August and Labor Day is coming up, so got to wear my white suit, my white linen suit before Labor Day. I'm not a savage. It's a blue moon, and so I put on my Kristen Vanderklaw Series 1974, and you can see the moon. It's not blue, but it's there. What I wanted to talk about was the results of the Grand Prix d'Horlogerie de Genève and how the entrants, the basically watch collectors, how they fared in terms of compared with the people who are in the academy. The way it works is that I think you got something like 800 people in the Grand Prix Academy, and they all vote on the watches, and the ones with the most votes for six watches in each category are the ones that then go to what are called the nominations. Now the next step is going to be they have the voters. These are special members who are given the watches, and they go over the six watches and decide which one deserves to win the prize for this year. So let's take a look, and I want to sort of comment on how you guys did, those who participated in the Grand Prix picks. First of all, in the ladies group, you did pretty well in that one. The one watch that a lot of people picked that didn't make the nominations was Chopek. And Chopek did make some, but this was one they didn't, and a lot of people liked it. Hermes was a favorite. And it was selected, and so was Piaget. It was another favorite, and so those two, Arnold and Son, also that one did pretty well in that category. Beauregard did, and they were also part of the nomination. So that was one that he did pretty well in. The voters did, or the people who are guessing. Now, in the ladies' complications watch, the people in the contest did even better. Some of the popular ones were Anderson, Chopard, Gucci. There are so many. Louis Vuitton. These were the ones that ended up in the finalists. There weren't a lot that were favorites that didn't seem to do too well, like there was in the ladies. In the men's division, this is another one that very few were that the people picked, that the people in the contest picked, that weren't in the finals. Again, Chopek seemed to get cut. There was one called Yosuke, but most of the other ones they picked. This year, for some reason, that there are so many of the people who are collectors who are now in sync with what the Academy voters think is sort of interesting. They've never done this well, and I don't know, God, this 5, 6, 7 years we've been having this contest. Okay, in the men's complication, this is another one you did pretty well. Suhanov was one that a lot of people picked that didn't make it in this particular category. Same with Singer. Singer made it later on in one of the other ones in the other categories. So in men's complications, the favorites were Vuitton and Parmigiani. By the way, too, Parmigiani and also Beauvais had a lot of watches in a lot of the categories, and they all did pretty well. Okay, moving on to iconic. Again, like I said, they're doing pretty well. Some of the ones in Iconic that were favorites, Breitling was one, Tag Heuer was one. Interestingly, Chopard was one. Chopard is another one that seemed to have really come up a lot. One that didn't, and one of my favorite brands is Oris. They didn't make it. Nor Doxa. Doxa, I love Doxa, but it didn't make it in the Iconic either. To me, the Iconic is not the most important one. Now, in tourbillons, the Laurent Ferrier did very well. The Bulgari did, Parmigiani did. These were all that were picked. The ones that were cut on this one were the most interesting one was the Audemars Piguet. Now, this is the Audemars Piguet that Audemars Piguet and the other categories did pretty well, the ones they entered in. But this is, I think, about the only category that Audemars Piguet had a watch in that didn't make the nominations. And this is in the Tourbillon. And I think the reason for it was their Spider-Man watch. I don't know. The members of the Academy said Spider-Man for Tourbillon. Bulgari, Beauvais again, Parmigiani again, Arnold and Sons. Arnold and Sons, they did a lot this year that were really good. Now, the next category was calendars and astronomic. Everybody got one right here. There wasn't anybody of the 35 people who entered the contest. Not a single one got one that was right. Now, that was wrong. They all had one. They all picked them. Beauvais, by far, was a favorite pick in this category. Parmigiani was another one. There's Parmigiani again. Parmigiani has been in earlier ones, but they haven't done that well. A new guy, Pikulik. He is I think he's a watchmaker in Berlin. He's more for designs than he is watchmaking, but I've heard a lot about him. Very much of a favorite. Mechanical exceptions, the ones that had problems, Hook and Hydra, something like that. Hook and Huygens. That was one I really liked, but it didn't make the cut. Neither did Behrens. That was another one that was a lot of people picked. Both of those that didn't make it. In fact, I think in mechanical exceptions they were the only two that didn't. Audemars Piguet. See, Audemars Piguet had one of their more traditional ones in mechanical exceptions, and it was again made it. Chronographs. Now this is one, the Peterman and I want to say, I hate to mispronounce it, Badet. Peterman and Badet. These two young men, they had actually won something on some kind of innovation thing a couple years ago. And now in a chronograph, they make everything of their own. Ones that didn't make the cut here that were fairly popular was Seiko didn't, Reservoir didn't, Breitling didn't, Louis Monet didn't, and I think he was the one who invented the chronograph, Louis Monet, so his namesake didn't make it. De Bethune was another popular, of course, that it did make it in the chronograph. I think it was in the chronograph. No, that was in the mechanical exception. So Peterman, Singer. Singer was one that didn't make any other ones. Now, the important thing about Singer and chronograph is that Singer has called the Agen graph movement in it, so that's important. Sports, by far the favorite here was Gronfeld. Some other ones that you usually don't associate. I mean, I don't associate that one with sports. That's like, I mean, Groenfeld was like super luxury ones, but not flashy. Um, Chopard. Chopard was another one that did quite well. Some that didn't are Holgrund, and there's I can't say the last name on that. Louis Vuitton. Louis Vuitton got beat up in a number of categories. It did well in some, but LVMH I think as their more and more of their stuff gets online, I mean their own movements come out of their movement factory. But Groenfeld, like I said, was a big favorite in the sports category. The jewelry category, everybody got one. In jewelry, some point I said never vote against Van Cleef and Arpels for a good reason. Of course, that was one of the favorites in jewelry. Bulgari, Gucci. I got my Gucci tie on. Piaget, R. Sylvia, a lot of ones in arts and crafts. Anderson, a lot of that in there. One that there's sort of a funny feeling about Jacobs and Son. Jacobs, is known as Jacobs the jeweler, at one time was involved with sort of thug life, and he got into a lot of trouble and had to go to jail, and then he came back, and he really has some interesting watches, but I think he's still doing time. Anyway, and in arts and crafts, Van Cleef and Arpels. This is what, so you don't vote against it. I found out. Okay, the Petite Aiguille. Much to my surprise, not a single person included Harboring 2 in Petite Aiguille. And the one that was by just a huge amount, the favorite, was the Christopher Ward. That was the one that most people liked by, again, by a whole lot. And we'll see what happens with that one. Louis Herod, that was one that not a lot of people picked. I liked it, and it did make the cut. Now, in the challenge category, some of the new ones, to me, it's a chance. When you don't take one of the well-known ones, you take a chance. And so I went with Underdog, and it made the cut. I think it made the cut. It also has its own movement, I believe. Nomos made it. Timeless made it. Corono was in some other categories and didn't make the cut, but it did in the challenge category. Underdog, I think, was one of the favorites, and we'll see what happens. Now, the clock, I don't know much about clocks, but Van Cleef and Arpels had an entry, so I figure I'll put that in. And it did quite well. I think last year it won. They had this, you ought to see their clocks. They're just amazing. So, Silberstein, this is one that really surprised me. Not only did it surprise me that they had an entry, but they surprised me that they make the cut, and I'm very glad to see that. Now, in terms of people making who they think is going to get the Grand Prix award, there are a lot of ones that are interesting. Berthold was one that was fairly popular. That was my choice. Audemars Piguet was another one. Simon Brett, this is one that Mathieu Allegre was the designer for. I wish them luck. Chopek was another one. De Bethune was another. Rudis Silvia. There was the Voutilanen was another one. There weren't as many for Voutilanen. I was surprised for the grand prize. There was a lot for Voutilanen in I think it was a Tourbillon. I think it was in Tourbillon that he entered his. The mechanical complications. That was the one that he had an entry in, and that he did well on that one too. Anyway, those are I wanted to announce our winner. We had one person, I think it was just one, but he was the first one who had all of them right. And that is name Eduardus Rastriopianus. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. He got every category right. Some years I do well, some years I don't. This year I did. I got them all right too. I mean, when I say right, I picked one that were in the nominations. So, but like I said, it seems that everybody who enters this contest are getting better and better every year. And this year, we all did pretty well. Maybe next year you'd like to enter. I'll be sending Eduardus his watch. I'll be sending him an email so I know where to send it. Let me know what you think. And until next time, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Side, the art and science of watch collection. Opportunity to subscribe if you'd like. Take care.